I've made over $500,000 over the last 12 months day trading stocks. I've been a full-time trader for over 5 years. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to replace your 9-to-5 income with day trading. I'm going to give you the framework and the rules that you need to know to become a consistently profitable trader, even if you have a job or a business. And I'm going to teach you how to know when to quit your job and to go all in on trading. Most people think that it's impossible to become profitable if you have a job or a business, but that could not be farther from the truth. I have worked with hundreds of traders who were able to become successful even with a job or a business or other large responsibilities in their life. You have to follow the right framework, and in this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know if you want to become a full-time trader and do this for a living. Let's hop right into this video. And by the way, I am a little bit sick, so if I am lacking the energy that I usually have in most of my other videos, it's because of that. And I just wanted to get this video out because it's been a highly requested video. And right off the bat, when you go on social media, when you go on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you see all of these traders that are seemingly making $5,000 to $10,000 a day, that are flexing their big P&L screenshots, and now all of a sudden you think that you need to have those type of days to make a comfortable living from trading. And because of everyone else's results in the trading space, it skews your own expectations. And right off the bat, the first step that you need to focus on when becoming a full-time trader, especially if you have a job, is you need to shift your expectations. You have to understand that in order to make a comfortable living from trading, you don't need to make $5,000 a day, because that completely overwhelms you. As a beginner trader, how are you supposed to get to the point where you can make $1,000 per day or $5K or $10K per day like all these other traders? I want you to reset your expectations and focus on small, repeatable wins. I don't want you to focus on your P&L, your profit and loss, and how much you're making. You need to understand that to make a comfortable living from day trading, you have to make $398 per day. That is a six-figure salary. Most college graduates nowadays do not land six-figure jobs out of school. A lot of people hope that they can make six figures after working for the same company for 5 to 10 years. So 100K a year is $398 per day. Doesn't that sound way more realistic than what all of these traders make, trading seem like online, where you have to make thousands of dollars per day just to make a living? That is not the case. Your goal is to make $398 per day. And that can come from 1 to 3 solid trades a day. You don't need this one massive home run, 300% move to make a comfortable living from trading. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of motivation and inspiration, because $398 a day, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but that is doable. When you have the right expectations, success seems a lot more achievable. And I want you to focus on the process. I want you to focus on small, repeatable wins and focusing on managing your risk. Focus on limiting your losses. And here's the thing, I'm not expecting you to hit $398 per day right off the bat. You need to focus on small wins. But if you can master making $100 per day, especially while you're working a full-time job, from there, you could raise your risk, you refine your trading plan, and you could scale that to then $200 a day, then $300 a day, then hopefully $500 a day. And at that point, you're making more than $100,000 per year, okay? Profitability becomes a lot more realistic when you stop trading like you want to become a millionaire. Obviously, you want to make millions. You want to buy a fancy car. You want to live a life of freedom. You want to make thousands of dollars per day. However, that is not realistic in the beginning. You have to shift your expectations and focus on small, repeatable wins. Focus on making $50 a day first, then focus on making $100 a day, then $150 a day, then $200 a day. And if you follow that right process, you're going to be able to actually hit your goals, which is, of course, at the end of the day, probably $398 per day, which is 6 figures a year. Keep in mind, while you have a job, you're not going to be that reliant on trading income. You don't need trading income to pay your bills. So you want to learn the right way. You don't want to rush the process. This is not a sprint. This is not a race of how you can become as profitable as fast as possible. This is a marathon. This is you saying to yourself, okay, I have a 9-to-5 job. I'm making $5,000 to $10,000 or $15,000 a month from this job. Great. I want to invest in myself and learn another skill set. So in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or 12 months, this skill set can either be a really good secondary source of income, or it could potentially replace my current income. Okay. And you have to think with this longer term perspective, a longer term time horizon. You're learning a real career. Trading is not a get rich quick scheme. And with any career path, it requires discipline, commitment, work ethic, consistency, and of course, the right framework for success. So zoom out. This is literally an investment in yourself. Focus on building the skill set, start small, and make sure you have the right expectations. If you work a 9-to-5 or if you have a business, you're probably wondering, how much time do I need to allocate towards trading to actually see results? And what you need to understand is that you can trade part-time and still make a lot of improvement. And the goal that I would focus on is to build a repeatable pre-market and post-market routine. I want you to allocate 2 to 3 hours per day on the days that you trade, and I would try to trade 2 to 4 days a week. And that is plenty of time to see significant progress. Of course, ideally, you're trading every single day and for the entire trading session, but that's probably not realistic, especially if you're a beginner and you have a job and you have other responsibilities in your life. Keep in mind, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. You are investing into a long-term skill set. You don't need to see immediate success because you have income coming in from your job. So even 2 to 3 hours per day on the days that you trade, and if you could trade 2 to 4 days a week, that is plenty of time to see massive improvement. And then as you progress, as you become more and more profitable and you develop consistency, you can allocate more time towards trading. And this works the best if you work remotely. And there are so many jobs out there that are remote now. And trading is probably the best skill set you can learn if you work remotely, because you can allocate your hours more efficiently. You can dedicate, let's say, 2 to 3 hours per day between 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., basically the morning trading session towards trading, and then you go and work your remote job. And what I would do is, every single morning that you can trade, I would focus for the first 15 to 30 minutes on building your watch list, picking out your favorites, which stocks you want to focus on for the morning session. I have YouTube videos teaching you how to do this. And I would mentally prepare, mentally focus. And then after work, towards the evening, what I would do is journal. I would look back at your trading, understand your mistakes, review your entries, your exits, your trade management, and work towards refining your system. And ultimately, you're going to have to review a lot of charts after trading and during the weekend, because you need exposure, you need repetition. In order to get really good at reading charts, understanding price action, and identifying setups, you need practice time. And what you could do is back test. You could use Thinkorswim on demand, which is a feature where you can go back in time and literally kind of trade as if it was real time. So that's what I would do. I would put in the work after hours, looking at charts, reviewing your plan, making improvements, and then I would just try to allocate 2 to 3 hours per day on the days that you could trade, and try to trade 2 to 4 days a week, 2 to 4 days a week. And then during holiday weeks, or maybe on your vacations, right, you could take vacation days to add additional trading days for yourself. Next, I want you to keep it simple. I want you to focus on one system, one methodology, and master it. You shouldn't have 10 different strategies and 15 different indicators that you're using. As a beginner, trading is already going to be overwhelming. So why would you make it more overwhelming by bouncing from strategy to strategy, learning from this mentor and then learning from another mentor and learning all sorts of systems? I want you to keep it simple and lock in on one methodology. And for me personally, I think the simplest things in life are oftentimes the most brilliant. And that 1000% applies to trading. Just because you have complicated lines on your chart, you have complicated indicators, that doesn't mean you're going to be more profitable. That is a fallacy. In fact, keeping it simple is the best thing that you can do for your trading. For me personally, I trade 2 setups. That is it. And I use 2 different indicators. I use the 20 simple moving average and I use the 200 simple day moving average. That is it. And I have videos on all of my setups, all of my indicators on my YouTube channel, but I also have a free 10+ hour trading course that is genuinely better than most paid courses on the internet. You could find that in the description of this video, and it'll teach you my methodology and my system. It's completely free, so watch it, and that could help you build the foundation for your trading. But yeah, that's what I would do. 1 to 2 high probability simple setups. I would use a simple and structured entry and exit system. I want your management to be simple, where when you get into a trade, you know exactly how you're going to manage your exit. You know when you're going to raise your stop loss, what targets you're looking for. I want you to maintain a consistent risk per trade, right? Remember, the first point that we made was to have small repeatable wins. To have small repeatable wins, right, you need to have consistent risk. And what I would do in terms of technology is just get one screen, maybe one 30-inch monitor. You can get them for pretty cheap at Best Buy, or you can go on Facebook Marketplace and get a, kind of a second-hand monitor for super cheap, and just have a simple computer. You don't need 10 different monitors and a crazy setup, right? Once you start making money, that's when you can invest in your setup and upgrade. So keep it simple. And by the way, if you are looking for something a little bit more serious, I do personally help scale and coach traders from zero to consistently profitable, where I take my students under my wing and they trade live with me every single day. So if you are looking for a hands-on mentor, you could apply for my mentorship program, also in the description of this video. Let's go over some rules that you need to follow before you even think about quitting your job and becoming a full-time trader. Number 1, you need to have 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses already saved up. In other words, you need to feel comfortable when you quit your job and go all in on trading. What happens to a lot of full-time traders is that they quit their job and now all of a sudden they feel a lot of pressure that they need to make money with their trading in order to pay their bills and in order to survive. And that pressure is horrible for your trading. It's devastating because it's going to lead to you making emotional and impulsive decisions, where instead of just trading what's in front of you, you're going to be forcing trades, forcing setups that are not there because you have the need to make money in order to just survive and pay your bills, all right? Scared money doesn't make money. You need to feel comfortable and confident with your trading and with your financial situation before you quit your job and go full-time as a trader. So I would really focus on also making sure that your strategy works in all market conditions. For example, right after COVID, when there was a massive bull run in the markets, right? If you went long on anything, if you bought anything, you made money. And a lot of traders made a ton of money during COVID going long, and they ended up quitting their jobs. And as soon as the market, transitioned into a bear market and the market started going down, and of course the trading environment changed, a lot of those traders, they couldn't make money anymore because, a lot of their strategies were long based. And from there, they actually gave back a lot of the profits that they made right before they quit. And now they're feeling way more pressure to make money because they don't have a job. Their strategies aren't working anymore. And that's how most of them end up blowing their entire account. You need proof that you could also handle drawdown. You need a setback in your trading, and then you need to overcome that setback before you even think about quitting your job. So if you're finding some success as a trader, don't rush to quit your job. Make sure you live through that one setback, overcome it. That's going to help you develop more confidence. And that's, after that, that's when you can think about potentially quitting. And you also need proof that you don't tilt after a loss. Or if you do have a setback, you need proof that you're not going to just gamble and blow away all your profits, okay? So make sure you have 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses saved up. Make sure you're in the right financial position, make sure you're in the right psychological position to be able to quit your job and still feel comfortable, and make sure your strategy works through all environments. Make sure you know how to handle your risk, you know how to handle yourself if you see a setback in your trading, and yeah, make sure you feel comfortable before you go full time. Let's go over a beginner mistake that a lot of part-time traders make, where you start trading, you start to see some progress, you're making a little bit of money, you're starting to get very confident, and then you scale your risk way too quickly. And you never want to scale your risk before you establish consistency. And I get it. You want to become a full-time trader. You want to find every reason to potentially quit your job and go into trading full-time. However, you don't want to rush the process, and you don't want to focus on your results. You don't want to focus on your P&L. That kind of leads into point number 6. Focus on the process, not the result. I want you to detach yourself from the outcome. And what is the outcome we're looking for? The outcome is you making $10,000 to $20,000 a month and you quitting your job. I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on the process of achieving the outcome that you want. I want you to focus on building your trading plan. I want you to focus on building the right habits to become a profitable trader. I want you to focus on your risk management. I want you to focus on the art of identifying high quality setups versus low quality setups. And in the beginning, I don't want you to focus on your P&L. I don't want you to focus on the amount that you're making or the amount you're losing, because it's not a good reflection of the progress you're making. And what happens a lot of the times is a trader will put in a lot of work, they're disciplined, they're consistent for the first, let's say, 3 to 6 weeks, but they don't really see any results. They're not making that much money. And even though they may be improving at an amazing rate, because those improvements are not reflected in the amount of money that they're making, they get discouraged and then they stop putting in the work. And then if you stop putting in the work, well, you're definitely not going to get the outcome that you're looking for. Okay, your goal in the beginning isn't to replace your job income. Your goal is to build the habits that makes a professional and a profitable trader successful, right? That's what you want to focus on. Focus on the process, okay? And the best part about it is, if you're working a 9 to 5 or if you have a business, you're fine. You're making income from your job or your business, and you don't need to rely on your income from trading to make a living. And as a result, the pressure is a lot lower. What you could do is not rush the process, focus on treating it like it's a marathon rather than a sprint, and let your edge mature naturally. Don't try to force the process of you becoming profitable because you want to quit your job really quickly, okay? You want to scale cleanly. You want to scale the right way. You don't want to jump from $50 risk to $400 risk overnight. You want to start with $50 risk, establish consistency, then $100 risk, establish consistency, then $200 risk, establish consistency, etc. And that's how you're going to be consistently profitable. And that is what's going to give you the foundation to make, let's say, $398 a day, which is 6 figures a year, and hopefully a lot more. Hopefully within a year or 2 or 3 years, you're making $500 a day, $1,000 a day, $1,500 a day. That is the goal, but you have to focus on the process in order to achieve the outcome. In summary, I want you to shift your expectations and treat trading like the career path that it is. I want you to work hard. I want you to be disciplined. I want you to be committed. And I want you to zoom out and look at this like it's a long-term skill set. Don't focus on hitting home run trades as a beginner trader. Focus on small, repeatable wins with small risk, and understand that to make a comfortable living from day trading, you have to make $398 per day. And I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. However, that is so freaking doable, especially if you're working hard, if you're focusing on the process rather than the outcome, and of course, if you have the right framework for success, okay? You want to build a routine that will ensure that you're able to get the practice time that you need to become profitable. Allocate 2 to 3 hours per day on the days that you could trade, and try to trade 2 to 4 days a week. It's okay if you're progressing at a slower pace because you can't trade every single day. That is fine, okay? Focus on making as much improvement as you can. And like I said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. The goal isn't to become as profitable as fast as possible. It's to build the skill set slowly over time. So in 6 months or in 12 months, this could either be an amazing secondary source of income, or this could potentially replace your primary source of income. Keep it simple. Make sure you have 6 to 12 months of living expenses saved up. Make sure that when you're about to quit, you're in the right financial and psychological mindset that where you're not going to feel pressure. You're not going to feel like, oh my God, I need to make money with trading. Otherwise, I'm not going to pay my bills and I'm not going to, pay my mortgage. You don't want that to happen. You want to be comfortable. You want to feel secure when you become a full-time trader. So you could just trade what's in front of you versus trading, over trading because you feel a lot of pressure that you need to make money, right? Don't scale too quickly and just follow the right process for success. And if you need help with any of this, like I said, I have a free 10+ hour course that will help you. It's in the description of this video. And I have so many videos on YouTube that will help you as well. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure you leave a like, make sure you leave a comment with feedback, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because my goal is to help you become a profitable trader, even if you have all the time in the world or if you can only do this part-time. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much for watching.